The silence that enveloped room 2847 at Dubai's Jumeirah Beach Hotel was the kind that made skin crawl, thick, oppressive, and wrong. At exactly 11:47 a.m. on March 23, 2015, that silence shattered like crystal against marble as housekeeping supervisor Amira Hassan's master key clicked in the lock. She had come to investigate guest complaints about a persistent burning smell from the ventilation system, expecting perhaps a forgotten hair straightener or an overloaded phone charger. What she found instead would haunt her dreams for years to come. Elena Marchetti lay sprawled across the polished bathroom floor, her Emirates Airlines uniform still crisp and pressed except for the dark crimson stains spreading across the pristine white blouse. Her auburn hair fanned out like spilled wine against the cream marble, and her hazel eyes, once described by passengers as kind enough to calm any turbulence, stared sightlessly at the golden ceiling fixtures above. Scattered around Elena like macabre confetti were dozens of printed photographs. A glowing pregnant woman in designer abayas, family photos at luxury resorts, romantic dinner pictures with timestamps that would soon become crucial evidence. These weren't random printouts. They were carefully curated proof of a deception so profound it had driven someone to murder. Security to room 2847, Amira whispered into her radio, her voice barely audible over her own thundering heartbeat. We need police. There's been a death. Within minutes, the hallway filled with the controlled chaos of a crime scene. Dubai police cordoned off the area while forensics teams began their methodical work, photographing each printed photograph before bagging it as evidence. The irony wasn't lost on investigators. In a city built on image and perception, carefully staged family portraits had become both the motive and the roadmap to murder. Elena Marchetti had arrived in Dubai 18 months earlier with dreams as golden as the city's skyline. Born in the rolling hills of Montalcino in 1987, she grew up among ancient vineyards where her father managed the Brunello harvest and her mother taught primary school children to read in both Italian and English. The Marchetti family wasn't wealthy, but they were rich in the kind of old-world values that seemed increasingly rare in Elena's generation. Her dreams had carried her through rigorous Emirates Airlines training in Dubai, where she mastered the art of serving champagne at 40,000 feet, while maintaining perfect composure during emergency drills. Her instructors noted her unusual combination of Italian warmth and professional precision. She could defuse an angry passenger's tantrum with a smile and solve complex seating arrangements with mathematical efficiency. By 2014, Elena had become one of Emirates' most requested crew members on the Milan-Dubai route. Her small apartment in Dubai Marina was carefully arranged with vintage Italian pottery and handwritten letters from home, creating a sanctuary where she would cook elaborate meals for fellow crew members who had also left everything behind for the promise of adventure in the Gulf. Elena's true dream extended far beyond the gleaming aisles of commercial aircraft. She carried with her a worn leather notebook filled with sketches and business plans for a boutique hotel she wanted to open in Tuscany, a place where travelers could experience authentic Italian hospitality without the tourist traps that had begun to plague her hometown. She studied hospitality management through correspondence courses, saved every dirham she could, and spoke passionately about sustainable tourism to anyone who would listen. Samir Al-Mansouri possessed the kind of magnetic presence that commanded attention in Dubai's competitive business landscape. At 38, he had transformed his family's modest construction business into Al-Mansouri Development, one of the Emirates' most successful real estate companies. His projects dotted the Dubai skyline, luxury residential towers in downtown, exclusive beach resorts in Jumeirah, and commercial complexes that bore his company's distinctive architectural signature. Born into a respected Emirati family with connections stretching back to Dubai's pearl diving days, Samir had married Layla Al-Zahra in a wedding that made headlines in Gulf news. The ceremony at the Emirates Palace in Abu Dhabi was attended by government ministers and business leaders, cementing relationships that proved crucial to his company's rapid expansion. Samir spoke fluent English with the polished accent that came from his education at the London School of Economics, where he had earned an MBA in international business. He moved effortlessly between the traditional majlis of his family compound and the gleaming boardrooms of multinational corporations, equally comfortable discussing ancient Bedouin poetry and contemporary architectural theory. His wife Layla was pregnant with their third child in 2015, adding to their family that already included 2 young children. From the outside, their marriage appeared to be a perfect blend of tradition and modernity. Layla balanced her medical practice with raising their children and supporting Samir's ambitious business endeavors. But beneath Samir's polished exterior lurked a compulsion that would ultimately destroy everything he claimed to value. Hotel concierges at Dubai's most exclusive properties knew him not just as a wealthy guest who tipped generously, but as a man who seemed to maintain relationships with an unusual number of attractive foreign women who were never his wife. He was what we call a crew hunter, explained Maria Santos, a veteran Iberia flight attendant who had worked Middle Eastern routes for 8 years. These men specifically target airline crew because were exhausted from long flights, and were lonely in foreign cities. They know exactly what they're doing. Dubai in 2015 was experiencing unprecedented growth, attracting ambitious professionals from around the world with promises of tax-free salaries and career opportunities. For airline crew, the city represented both opportunity and danger. The constant rotation of international flights created a transient community where relationships formed quickly and dissolved just as fast. The city's hotel bars and upscale restaurants became hunting grounds for predators like Samir, who understood that flight attendants arriving from long-haul journeys were particularly vulnerable. They were disoriented from time zone changes, lonely from being away from home, and often seeking human connection in a city that could feel anonymous despite its glamorous facade. Elena's crew schedule showed she worked the Milan-Dubai route twice weekly, staying at the Jumeirah Beach Hotel where business executives often gathered for informal networking. The hotel's uptown bar had become a second home to international flight crews, creating a social ecosystem that men like Samir had been exploiting for years. What made Samir particularly dangerous was his patience and sophistication. Unlike crude predators who relied on obvious wealth displays, he positioned himself as a cultured businessman genuinely interested in meaningful conversation. He studied his targets carefully, learning their interests and vulnerabilities before making his approach. The combination of Elena's romantic nature and professional ambitions made her the perfect target for Samir's calculated seduction. She was far enough from home to feel isolated, successful enough to be attracted to ambitious men, and vulnerable enough to believe in the possibility of finding true love in an unlikely place. November 15, 2014. Elena's Emirates flight EK-205 from Milan had arrived 3 hours behind schedule due to Mediterranean storms that had battered southern Europe for days. The delay meant she missed the crew dinner at Dubai Marina, leaving her stranded with an empty evening in a city where she still felt like a stranger despite 18 months of regular layovers. Exhausted but too restless to sleep, she found herself alone at Atlantis the Palms Nobu restaurant, picking at a plate of miso-glazed cod while texting her sister back in Montalcino. "Scusi, is this seat taken?" The voice was warm, confident, carrying the slight British accent that came from expensive international education. Samir Al-Mansouri stood beside her table in a perfectly cut navy suit, his smile as practiced as a diplomat's yet somehow managing to appear genuinely warm. Elena looked up from her phone to find herself facing a man who seemed to embody everything sophisticated about Dubai's business elite. His dark hair was silver at the temples. His posture spoke of confidence earned rather than inherited, and his eyes held the kind of focused attention that made her feel like the only person in the crowded restaurant. "Please sit," Elena replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. Something about his approach felt different from the usual crude advances she encountered from businessmen in hotel bars. "I noticed you were reading something in Italian," Samir said, settling into the chair with fluid grace. "I spent 2 years in Rome during my university days. Such a beautiful language, though I'm afraid I've forgotten most of it." The conversation revealed Samir's masterful understanding of human psychology. He asked thoughtful questions about Elena's work, her impressions of Dubai, her dreams beyond aviation. When she mentioned her family's vineyard, he shared stories of wine tastings in Tuscany, painting himself as a cultured man who appreciated authentic experiences over flashy displays of wealth. "I have to confess something," Samir said after they had been talking for nearly 2 hours. "I'm going through a difficult time personally. My marriage, it's complicated." He paused, allowing vulnerability to creep into his voice. "My wife and I, We've grown apart since our second child was born. She's become consumed with social obligations, charity committees, shopping. We barely speak anymore except about schedules and household logistics. Elena felt her heart respond to what seemed like genuine pain in his voice. Here was a successful, intelligent man who appeared to be trapped in a loveless marriage. Exactly the kind of situation her romantic Italian heart found irresistible. "That must be incredibly lonely," she said softly. "It is," Samir replied, his eyes meeting hers with grateful surprise at her empathy. "I threw myself into work for years, thinking if I just built the business bigger, made more money, things would improve. But success means nothing when you come home to silence." Phone records would later show they exchanged numbers that night. Elena's diary revealed her immediate infatuation. "Met an extraordinary man tonight, different from the usual Dubai businessmen. Sensitive, cultured, trapped in a marriage that sounds like a prison." Over the following weeks, Samir deployed a seduction strategy refined through years of practice. His first text arrived exactly 48 hours after their meeting, long enough to avoid appearing desperate, short enough to maintain momentum. "Elena, I haven't stopped thinking about our conversation. There's a hidden gem of a restaurant in Old Dubai I'd love to share with you." The restaurant was pier chic, built on stilts over the Arabian Gulf where the sound of waves provided romantic ambience. Samir had reserved the private dining room, arriving with a small gift, a vintage Italian cookbook he claimed had belonged to his grandmother. "I thought of you when I saw this," he said, presenting the worn leather volume. "My grandmother always said the secret to understanding a culture was through its food." Elena's diary chronicled her growing emotional investment. December 1st, dinner with Samir was magical. "He's so different from Italian men. More mature, more worldly. The way he talks about his marriage breaks my heart. He said meeting me reminded him what real connection feels like." The gifts continued, always thoughtful, never ostentatious. A rare orchid for her apartment because she had mentioned loving flowers. A book of Italian poetry because she had quoted a line during one of their conversations. Each gesture was carefully calculated to suggest a man who truly listened, who valued her mind as much as her beauty. But Samir's most devastating manipulation was making Elena feel chosen among many options. At the Burj Al Arab Skyview bar, she first encountered Maria Santos, a stunning Spanish flight attendant who approached their table with obvious familiarity. "Samir, I haven't seen you in months," Maria said, her hand lingering on his shoulder. "How was your business trip to London?" Samir's response was masterful, warm enough to acknowledge their history, distant enough to signal dismissal. "Maria, lovely to see you. This is Elena, someone very special." The emphasis on very special was deliberate, designed to make Elena feel she had won some sort of competition. Similar encounters occurred with Priya Sharma from Air India, who seemed genuinely confused by Samir's sudden coolness, and Rebecca Thompson from British Airways, who actually confronted him about unanswered text messages. Each interaction reinforced Elena's belief that she had captured the attention of a highly desirable man who had many options but chose her. "I think Samir is quite popular with airline girls," Elena confided to her roommate Sophie. "But he only has eyes for me now." That Spanish girl looked devastated when she saw us together. By January 2015, Samir had begun the most crucial phase of his manipulation, painting a picture of their shared future. During a weekend at the Emirates Palace in Abu Dhabi, where he maintained a corporate suite, Samir showed Elena architectural plans for a boutique hotel development in Fujairah. "My lawyer says the divorce proceedings should be finalized by summer," he told her as they walked along the corniche. "I want to do this properly, ensure my children have time to adjust, make sure Layla is fairly settled. But after that, I want to build something real with you." He pointed to the infinity pool overlooking the Indian Ocean in the development plans. "This could be ours. Your Italian hospitality expertise combined with Emirati luxury. We could create something truly special together." Elena's diary entry from that night revealed the depth of her emotional investment. January 20th. "I think I'm falling in love. Real love, not just attraction. Samir showed me plans for a hotel project he wants us to develop together. He sees a future with me that's bigger than romance. It's partnership. What Elena couldn't know was that the same hotel plans had been shown to 3 previous targets as proof of his serious intentions. Like everything else in Samir's carefully constructed seduction, it was a prop in an elaborate performance designed to exploit her deepest desires and vulnerabilities. February 14, 2015. Valentine's Day in Dubai arrived with the usual expatriate awkwardness. Western romantic traditions competing with Islamic cultural sensitivities in a city where public displays of affection remained legally precarious. Elena had spent her morning shift serving champagne to honeymooning couples on the Milan route, her heart fluttering with anticipation for the evening Samir had promised her. Something special, he had whispered during their last phone call. A Valentine's surprise that will show you how serious I am about our future. But as afternoon stretched into evening, Elena's phone remained stubbornly silent. By 8 p.m., disappointment had curdled into panic. She tried calling twice, reaching only his voicemail with its professional greeting. Unable to sit in her marina apartment dwelling on worst-case scenarios, Elena decided to venture out. The Mall of the Emirates was hosting a Valentine's market featuring artisanal chocolates and handcrafted jewelry. Perhaps she could find Samir a thoughtful gift for when he finally surfaced. The mall's soaring atrium was decorated with enormous red hearts and cascading ribbons. Elena wandered through the temporary stalls, fingering Italian leather journals and sampling Belgian truffles, trying to distract herself from the growing certainty that something was wrong. It was while examining a vintage compass at an antique jewelry stand that Elena's world shifted on its axis. Across the crowded promenade, near the entrance to Harvey Nichols, she spotted a familiar figure. Tall, distinguished, wearing the charcoal cashmere coat she had admired during their weekend in Abu Dhabi. Samir Al-Mansouri stood with his back partially turned, but his posture was unmistakable. Elena's first instinct was joy. Perhaps he was here shopping for her Valentine's gift, which would explain his mysterious silence. She started walking toward him, planning to surprise him with a playful accusation about keeping secrets. But as she drew closer, weaving through the evening crowd, Elena saw what made her blood freeze. Samir wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman of extraordinary beauty, petite, elegant, wearing a flowing abaya that couldn't quite conceal her obviously pregnant figure. Her face glowed with the radiance that came from being deeply loved and carrying new life. She looked up at Samir with such pure adoration that Elena felt like a voyeur witnessing something sacred. 2 small figures orbited around Samir's legs, a boy of perhaps 4 and a girl slightly younger, both with his distinctive dark eyes and strong jawline. The little girl tugged on his coat, demanding to be lifted, while the boy showed him something in a toy store window with excited gestures. Samir's response was immediate and natural. He scooped up his daughter while ruffling his son's hair, his face transformed by genuine paternal joy. Elena watched, frozen behind a decorative pillar, as Samir kissed his wife's forehead with tender reverence, his hand coming to rest protectively on her swollen belly. The gesture was so intimate, so automatic, that it spoke of years of practiced affection. This wasn't a man trapped in a loveless marriage. This was a man who adored his family. "We should get the children home soon," Elena heard the woman say in accented English as the family moved closer to her hiding spot. "I'm getting tired, and tomorrow is a school day for Khalid." Layla. This glowing, pregnant woman was Layla, the wife Samir had described as cold, distant, consumed with social obligations. But Elena could see the truth written in every gesture, every glance between them. They moved together with the synchronized rhythm of a couple deeply in love. "Of course, Habibti," Samir replied, using the Arabic endearment with natural ease. "Let's just stop by the bookstore for Khalid. Then we'll head home." Elena followed at a distance, her heart pounding. She watched as they browsed children's books together, Samir reading passages aloud in both Arabic and English while Layla laughed at his dramatic voices. He never stopped touching his wife, a hand on her lower back, fingers intertwined with hers, protective gestures that spoke of genuine devotion. The family tableau was so perfect, so naturally affectionate, that Elena began to question her own sanity. But then she remembered his exact words from their first night together. We barely speak anymore except about schedules and household logistics. Every detail of his supposed marital misery had been a carefully constructed lie. Elena stumbled out of the mall in a daze, her mind reeling with the implications. Back in her apartment, she sat on her small balcony overlooking Dubai Marina, trying to process the magnitude of her discovery. If Samir was lying about his marriage, what else was he lying about? The next morning, Elena called in sick to Emirates for the first time in her career. Instead of preparing for her scheduled Milan flight, she embarked on a different kind of investigation. She started with the other flight attendants she had encountered during her time with Samir. Reaching out required delicate diplomacy. Elena managed to connect with Maria Santos through a mutual friend at Iberia Airlines. What she learned during their coffee meeting made her physically ill. Samir told me the same story, Maria confirmed, her Spanish accent thick with remembered pain. Unhappy marriage, divorce proceedings, plans for the future. I thought I was special too. It took me 6 months to realize I was just another name on his list. Maria had done her own investigation after their relationship ended abruptly. Through hotel staff gossip and careful observation, she had identified at least 5 other flight attendants who had fallen for identical lies from Samir over the past 3 years. He targets specific airlines, Maria explained. European carriers especially. He studies our schedules, learns our names, positions himself to seem like coincidental meetings. The man is methodical about it. Elena felt the walls of her carefully constructed reality crumbling. Every romantic gesture, every thoughtful gift, every promise of a shared future had been deployed multiple times before. She wasn't unique. She wasn't special. She was simply the latest victim in a pattern of predatory behavior that stretched back years. The hotel development plans he had shown her, the boutique property in Fujairah that was supposed to represent their combined dreams, had been used as bait for at least 3 previous targets. The vintage cookbook, supposedly from his grandmother, was likely purchased fresh for each new conquest. Elena's growing rage mixed with desperation as the full scope of Samir's deception became clear. This wasn't just infidelity or a midlife crisis. This was systematic psychological manipulation practiced on vulnerable women who trusted him with their hearts and dreams. And now, armed with this devastating knowledge, Elena began planning her revenge. The weeks following Elena's devastating discovery transformed her from a romantic dreamer into a woman possessed by singular purpose. Her Marina apartment became a war room, its pristine walls now covered with printouts that told the story of Samir's systematic deception. Family photographs obtained through careful social networking revealed Samir and Layla at charity galas, their children playing in the gardens of their Emirates Hills villa, vacation pictures that painted a portrait of genuine marital bliss. Elena had become a detective investigating her own heartbreak. She compiled evidence with the methodical precision that had once made her Emirates' most requested crew member. Hotel receipts showing Samir's pattern of entertaining different women at the same romantic venues. Business cards from the antique dealer who confirmed selling multiple grandmother's cookbooks to the same customer. Phone records that would later become crucial evidence in understanding the scope of his manipulation. Her investigation revealed the chilling extent of Samir's predatory behavior. Through airline crew networks, Elena identified 7 flight attendants who had fallen victim to identical seduction strategies over the past 4 years. Each woman told the same story when approached with careful diplomacy. The unhappy marriage narrative, promises of divorce proceedings, shared business ventures that never materialized. Maria Santos provided the most disturbing insights during their second meeting at a quiet cafe in Jumeirah. She revealed that Samir maintained detailed profiles of potential targets, studying flight schedules and crew rotations with the precision of a military operation. He knew which airlines employed the most vulnerable women, those far from home, working demanding schedules that left them emotionally isolated. The hotel development plans that had so impressed Elena were real projects, but they served a darker purpose than she had imagined. Samir used legitimate business documents as props in his elaborate performances, lending credibility to his promises of shared futures. The same architectural blueprints had been presented to at least 5 different women as evidence of his serious romantic intentions. Elena's transformation was complete by March 20, 2015. The woman who had once cooked elaborate Italian dinners for homesick crew members now spent her days plotting revenge with mathematical precision. She had identified key vulnerabilities in Samir's carefully constructed double life: his wife's medical practice, their children's prestigious school, his business partnerships with conservative Emirati families who would not tolerate scandal. The plan that crystallized in her mind was elegant in its simplicity. Samir had been avoiding her calls for weeks, his romantic promises replaced by perfunctory text messages about work pressures. Elena recognized the dismissal pattern Maria had described. She was being discarded like all the others before her. But Elena Marchetti would not disappear quietly into Dubai's transient expatriate community. Her message to Samir was brief and loaded with implicit threat. The location she chose, room 2847 at the Jumeirah Beach Hotel, held symbolic significance as the site of many of their romantic encounters. The room number would later become infamous in Dubai police reports, but that night it simply represented Elena's final gambit. Samir arrived at exactly 9 p.m., his usual confident demeanor replaced by barely concealed anxiety. His designer suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders, and Elena noticed how his eyes immediately went to the manila folder spread across the coffee table. The evidence was displayed like an art installation: family photographs, business documents, a detailed timeline that connected his lies across multiple relationships. The confrontation that followed stripped away every pretense that had sustained their relationship. When Elena presented photograph after photograph of his happy family life, Samir's carefully maintained composure cracked like expensive porcelain hitting marble. His attempts at explanation, weak protestations about complex situations and cultural misunderstandings, crumbled under the weight of documented evidence. The moment when Samir finally dropped his mask would haunt Elena for the rest of her shortened life. His confession came not with remorse or shame, but with the casual cruelty of a man discussing weather patterns. He spoke of loving his pregnant wife, of viewing his affairs as entertainment rather than relationships, of the ease with which lonely foreign women could be manipulated. The coldness in his voice as he dismissed 18 months of Elena's emotional investment as a mere diversion revealed the true psychopath beneath his cultured exterior. He corrected her time frame with the precision of someone who kept meticulous records of his conquests, displaying a level of calculation that transformed heartbreak into something approaching horror. Elena's threat to expose him to his pregnant wife marked the point where their confrontation shifted from emotional drama to something far more dangerous. The careful control Samir had maintained throughout his double life suddenly faced its greatest challenge: a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain from destroying his perfect facade. His response revealed the depth of his desperation as he realized Elena represented a threat unlike any he had encountered before. Previous victims had accepted their dismissal and moved on quietly, understanding their vulnerable positions as foreign workers in a country where discretion was survival. But Elena's rage had transformed into something more dangerous: a willingness to sacrifice everything for revenge. The calculation in Samir's eyes as he studied Elena's face marked the moment when their relationship crossed the line from manipulation into genuine danger. He was trapped between two impossible choices: allow Elena to destroy his family or find another way to neutralize the threat she represented. What made Elena particularly dangerous was her thorough preparation and complete lack of concern for consequences. She had documented his business connections, identified his social vulnerabilities, and prepared multiple avenues for exposing his deception. Unlike his previous victims, she possessed both the evidence and the determination to follow through on her threats. As the confrontation reached its climax, Samir realized that his usual tactics of charm, intimidation, and dismissal were useless against a woman who had moved beyond caring about her own welfare. In that moment of recognition, something shifted in his demeanor, a cold calculation that would soon lead to irreversible violence. The silence that followed Elena's ultimatum stretched between them like a chasm, broken only by the distant hum of Dubai's late-night traffic 40 floors below. In that suffocating quiet, Samir Al-Mansouri made a calculation that would destroy everything he had spent years protecting. The woman sitting across from him represented an existential threat to his carefully constructed life, and his desperation overwhelmed whatever remained of his moral constraints. What happened next was reconstructed through forensic evidence and Samir's eventual confession to Dubai police. The confrontation escalated when Elena stood to leave, making it clear she intended to contact his wife immediately. Samir's response was swift and brutal, a single blow with a heavy crystal ashtray from the hotel room's coffee table. Elena fell instantly, her head striking the marble bathroom floor with a sound that would echo in Samir's nightmares for the remainder of his shortened freedom. Panic replaced calculation as Samir surveyed the scene. Elena lay motionless, blood pooling beneath her auburn hair, while the evidence of his deception remained scattered across the coffee table like accusations from beyond the grave. His attempt to stage an accident quickly proved futile. The blood spatter patterns and positioned evidence made it clear this was no unfortunate fall. In his desperation, Samir tried to remove the incriminating photographs, but his shaking hands scattered additional evidence across the bathroom floor. The irony was not lost on investigators. In trying to protect his secret life, Samir had created a crime scene that told the complete story of his deception. The discovery came at 11:47 a.m. when housekeeping supervisor Amira Hassan found Elena's body, surrounded by scattered family photographs that painted a picture of systematic betrayal spanning years. Detective Captain Rashid Al-Mazrui later described the crime scene as one of the most psychologically complex he had encountered in 15 years with Dubai police. The investigation moved with remarkable speed due to Elena's methodical documentation. Her compiled evidence provided investigators with a complete roadmap of Samir's predatory behavior. Phone records revealed his pattern of communications with multiple flight attendants, while hotel security footage confirmed his systematic targeting of airline crew over several years. Samir's arrest occurred at his Emirates Hills villa 36 hours later. News cameras captured Dubai police vehicles surrounding the luxury property where his pregnant wife and children waited inside, unaware their perfect family life was about to implode. His confession came in fragments during interrogation, his sophisticated demeanor crumbling under undeniable evidence. The impact on both families was devastating. Layla Al-Zahra, 7 months pregnant and reeling from revelations about her husband's double life, suffered complications requiring immediate medical intervention. The stress of learning about years of systematic infidelity while grappling with his arrest for murder proved nearly overwhelming. Elena's parents arrived from Italy to find their daughter's life reduced to evidence exhibits and news headlines. The contrast between Elena's dreams of a boutique hotel in Tuscany and her violent death in a Dubai luxury suite embodied the tragic gap between expatriate aspirations and harsh realities. The legal proceedings moved through Dubai's courts with unusual speed. Samir's conviction for premeditated murder carried a life sentence, his fall from respected businessman to convicted killer becoming a cautionary tale in Dubai's expatriate community. The case exposed vulnerabilities in systems designed to protect foreign workers. Emirates Airlines implemented new support protocols for crew members, while Dubai police established specialized units to investigate crimes targeting the transient expatriate population. European airlines began briefing crew members about specific risks of Middle Eastern routes. 5 years after Elena's murder, her case continued influencing policy and awareness in the aviation industry. The Elena Marchetti Foundation, established by her parents, provided support for airline crew members facing exploitation while working international routes. The perfect life that Samir had worked so carefully to construct was ultimately destroyed not by external forces, but by his own compulsive need to exploit vulnerable women's dreams. In trying to protect his secret through murder, he guaranteed its exposure and ensured his name would forever be associated with one of Dubai's most shocking crimes.